Hello, Bruce.
Hi, Simon.
How are you today?
I'm feeling jolly well, thank you very much. How are you?
I'm glad to hear that. I am not too shabby, thank you.
Very good, very good.
Indeed. That fella there is voiceover extraordinaire Bruce Fielding.
And that fella over here is the wonderful, wonderful Wells, Simon Wells.
Welsh. Simon Welsh. So what are we doing here?
Everybody knows what we're doing, Simon. They've tuned in specifically.
The majority, I bet they have. But you never know. There might be a random stray who was looking for an intellectual, classy, highbrow podcast and accidentally stumbled across us instead. So for their benefit...
It's a podcast. It's called Factoraly. What's it called again?
Factoraly.
And it's a lot of nonsense about stuff that you don't really mind about.
Yeah.
But you never know. It might come in handy occasionally at dinner party conversations, pub quizzes, things like that. Today we're talking about cheese.
Yes, today's episode is all about cheese. This is one of those subjects that is really, really big and is going to be quite tricky to condense down into a 30-minute chat, I feel.
Well, see, it's easy for me because I don't like cheese.
Okay, let's start there. What the heck?
So when I was younger, I used to drink gallons of milk, fresh, crisp, cool milk from the fridge. And to me, the taste of milk is just delicious.
Yeah.
The taste of cheese, however, is like a pint of milk that's been left in the sun for several days.
I mean, essentially, yeah.
So, and therefore I don't like it because it doesn't taste like milk.
Right. Okay, so it's not that you have a particular allergy or intolerance?
No. I can eat it quite literally till the cows come home.
Oh, you just choose not to.
Just choose not to.
I don't think I've ever met anyone like you.
How do you do?
I am the complete opposite. I love cheese. If it weren't for certain nutritional requirements, I think I could just live on cheese. There's so much of it. There are so many different varieties, so many different applications.
2,000 apparently.
2,000 types of cheese.
Yes.
Cool. We're gonna breeze through this then.
Okay. Let's start with number one and work our way through.
Yes. We'll do it in alphabetical order.
So cheese? It's a funny old word. Where does it
cheese
come from?
It's one of those words that has always meant what it is. It doesn't sort of go on a fantastically interesting journey. But
Käse, fromage.
Yeah, I didn't look into how fromage came about, but there's a Latin word called Cassius, spelled Cassius. That has sort of led to almost every other country's word for cheese. So Cassius, German had Käse, which became Käse, which became Käse. Dutch have Käse, which became Kies. We took Kies, we made it into cheese. Ta-da. There's a particular protein in milk that acts as an emulsifier in the cheese-making process, which is called casein, which is named after Cassius.
Well, there you go. So, tell me, what is cheese?
Cheese is essentially a foodstuff that's made out of pressed curds. Curds are what you get when you separate milk. If you take a batch of milk, you add certain bacteria, salt, emulsifying agents, etc. It separates out into lumpy stuff called curds and runny stuff called whey.
Okay.
So it separates into its solid and liquid forms.
You have to put something unpleasant in it to make it do that, though, don't you?
Yeah, so there's a thing called rennet, which I think you can kind of do without these days. I think they have a manufactured version of it, but essentially rennet is an enzyme that exists in the stomach lining of certain animals that aids with digestion and the breaking down of foods. If you take some of that and plop it in the milk, it curdles, it separates it out, and that's, you separate out the whey, the liquid stuff, and either get rid of that or use that in the making of other foodstuffs. You take the solid bits, you clump them together, you add salt, you cook them, you press them, get rid of all the liquid, you store it for a while, ta-da, cheese.
You say store it for a while.
Yes.
How long can you store cheese for?
Depends what kind of cheese you're making. Cottage cheese, you don't store it at all, you just serve it fresh. A brie might be stored for a month. an incredibly strong cheddar might be stored for a year.
How about 1,400 years?
Goodness me. That's an old cheese.
That's a very old cheese.
Talk about that.
Well, in 1987, a 1,400-year-old lump of still edible cheese was found in Ireland.
Huh.
It was in a bog, and this chap, Paddy Coughlin and Dan O'Connor, they found it while they were digging peat in County Tipperary. And it was wrapped in an animal's gut, and it was they found a partially intact wicker handle, so it was obviously being carried in a basket. And it was preserved by the bog, because the bog is very moist.
Yeah.
And it sort of sealed it.
Wow.
And archaeologists believe that it may still be edible, but nobody's actually had the guts to try it.
I was going to say, when you said it's still edible, I was just sort of picturing these two Irish fellas sniffing it and going,
Yes.
yeah, what the hell?
Well, that's happened with other things, hasn't it?
I'm sure, yeah.
I mean, the story of Rock. Do you know the story of Roquefort?
I came across many different legends and myths and stories as to how different varieties of cheese came about.
Yeah.
And I did read one about Roquefort, but go ahead.
I mean, the Randy Shepherd.
Yes, that's the one, yeah. That's the one I looked up as well. Go on, tell us about that.
The Randy French Shepherd, who basically was eating a lump of cheese and some bread and saw this girl that he quite fancied. And he sort of ran off, sort of thought, I'd better put the cheese and bread down somewhere. So he found a little cave and put the cheese and bread down and went after this girl and never came back for the cheese, strangely enough. I wonder, I can't think why.
And then the cheese caught a local mould.
Yes, the bread attracted the mould.
Yeah.
And then that mould transferred from the bread to the cheese.
Yeah.
And then turned it into blue cheese.
That's brilliant. I found this out after a little bit of a meander from somewhere else to somewhere else via this.
Yes.
I was going to look up the history of Stilton cheese, because Stilton's one of my favourite cheeses. You can get white or blue. White is just really nice and crumbly and fairly mild. And then there's blue, which is the one that looks like it's gone off, which I think is delicious.
Of course you do.
No one who smells my breath after I've eaten any would probably agree, but I think it's delicious. And I found that the particular mould, the particular fungus that gets injected into Stilton or other blue cheeses to give it those sort of blue veins that run through it, it is just purely mould. It's a mould that's taken from the base of a tree or a piece of soil or
It's
mulching
disgraceful.
leaves.
It's disgusting.
Chuck it in your cheese, it turns blue, it tastes amazing. Anyway, that particular fungal mould is called Penicillium roqueforti.
Okay.
And it's named because this Roquefort cheese that was, originated in the French area of Roquefort, I think they only named the fungus in the 1900s, but they'd sort of done various experiments with blue cheese and they'd identified this fungus and named it Penicillium roqueforti after the Roquefort cheese. And the Roquefort cheese was named after the area where it was first created, which is this area where the caves are, where the Randy Shepherd left his cheese behind and it got mouldy, etc., etc.
Right.
There are quite a few myths and legends for cheese. I found a legend that was talking about the origin of cheese just in general. And it was said that an Arabian merchant was crossing the desert and he was carrying some milk to drink in a pouch made from a sheep's stomach, which, as we've established, is where the rennet comes from. And the jostling of the milk in the pouch in the desert heat with the stuff in the lining turned it into curds and whey. And he separated it out and he ate the curds and he drank the whey, and that's how cheese was invented. Another legend claims it was created in much the same way by Odysseus in Homer's Odyssey.
What?
As he's fighting the Cyclops Polyphemus, much the same thing happened. He and his men were carrying milk in animal stomachs. They ditched it whilst they were fighting the Cyclops. They came back and it had turned into curds and whey.
Well, there's a thing.
Isn't it? And then little Miss Muffet came along and ate some of it.
Of course, yes. Before the spider, obviously.
Before the whole spider incident, yeah. The lesser-known chapter of Homer's Odyssey.
So that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
Where's it going to, though? Because I hear about all this vegan cheese and things.
Yeah, I've tried vegan cheese. I personally don't like it, but then that's because I'm comparing it to traditional cheese and it doesn't taste the same and therefore I think it's odd.
Right.
Anyone who doesn't have that association, they're probably very happy with it. Essentially, instead of using milk that you separate out into curds and whey, you sort of use
nut juice,
protein, oil, soya milk, anything like that. According to one particular definition of cheese that I found from the Cambridge Dictionary, said that it's a foodstuff made from the pressed curds which derive from milk, either animal or plant-based.
Okay.
So it is cheese. It's just vegan cheese. So there's no point in me asking what your favourite type of cheese is, because the answer would be one that doesn't exist.
No, my favourite sort of cheese... I have several favourite cheeses.
Oh, good.
But not because they're edible.
Ah. Okay.
So one of my primary favourite cheeses is, and I hate the smell, hate the taste, is Parmesan.
Oh, lovely.
I like Parmesan because it's got good stories going around it.
Has it?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's a bank called Credito Emiliano.
Very good.
Which is an Italian regional bank. And they've accepted large wheels of Parmesan as collateral for small business loans since 1953.
Oh my goodness.
And they've got storage vaults full of collateral cheese. So basically they've got the world's largest collection of Parmesan, Parmigiano Reggiano cheese in the bank vaults.
That's incredible. Because it's fairly expensive stuff, isn't it? I didn't look into that particular variety, but for whatever reason, it's quite pricey.
Always has been.
Yeah.
I mean, it was is often used as a diplomatic gift. In 1511, Pope Julius II gave Henry VIII 100 rounds of Parmesan cheese for helping him fight the French.
Crikey.
Yep. Yes, there was a time when Henry VIII and the Catholic Church got on.
The good old days.
Yeah. And it was the perfect gift. 100 rounds of Parmesan cheese. I mean, that must have cost a lot of money.
It's a lot of cheese, isn't it?
Absolutely.
There's a story I believe I've heard about Samuel Pepys with a wheel of Parmesan.
Yes.
As the city of London was burning around him in the Great Fire of 1666, he dashed back into his burning house to save his Parmesan cheese and buried it in the garden so that it wouldn't be ruined.
You use the word dash very, very loosely.
He sauntered?
He didn't. He was told that the fire might be there in a day or two.
Oh, I see.
So he sent a
precautionary
servant out to go and bury it for him, along with a whole load of wine.
Oh, okay.
So basically, he thought, I'm going to have to evacuate. So let's get the servant to bury the wine and bury the cheese. I mean, whether the servant actually did bury the wine and the cheese is another whole thing. But and then when he returned sometime later, I mean, it took a long while.
Yeah.
As I understand it, that there was fire coming on both sides, and he sort of like in the evening when he heard about the fire, he sort of went, I suppose I better bury the cheese and wine and other things,
and thereby invented the raclette. He sort of went back, unburied the thing, found that the top was slightly gooey.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Grand.
And Parmesan cheese, I think, was also used as a thank you gift by Horatio Nelson to the people of Tenerife.
Okay.
So there was a naval battle going on.
Yeah.
And this was the Santa Cruz de Tenerife. And the Navy decided to attack the port of Cadiz in southern Spain.
Right.
But they'd heard that the Spanish treasure convoys from America arrived at Santa Cruz in Tenerife. So they the British sent a flotilla of ships under the command of Nelson, who'd just recently been promoted admiral.
Right.
And they had like 4,000 men, 9 ships, 400 guns. But this is the story that we don't really hear in the UK.
No.
Which is Nelson being defeated and trounced completely by the military on Tenerife.
How dare you suggest such a thing? Nelson's a bally hero.
I know. But basically, Nelson had his 4,000 men. The Lieutenant General of Gutierrez in Tenerife had 1,700 men.
Oh.
Nelson had 400 guns. Gutierrez only had 91.
Okay.
And it didn't work out very well. because a lot of British ships were sunk. And many of the sailors were killed and sort of had to swim to shore and were captured.
Yeah.
This was also the battle where Nelson was shot in his arm and he had to have it amputated.
Oh, that's that one. Right.
Yeah. But basically, the British asked for a truce and they agreed to withdraw with an undertaking to do no further damage to the town or make any more attacks on Tenerife or the Canary Islands. So this is why we now have lots of holidaymakers
now they're in our
to the
territory.
Canary Islands. So this Lieutenant General Gutierrez allowed the British to leave with their arms. But Nelson had lost so many ships that he didn't have the capacity to take all his militia home. So this general lent Nelson 2 Spanish schooners to get him home with his troops.
Right.
And he was so appreciative of this that he actually sent a load of cheese to Gutierrez as a token of his gratitude.
Right.
And it's still on display.
Really?
If you go to Toledo in Spain,
Yeah.
you can see the cheese.
Oh, that's brilliant. Fantastic.
Talking of naval battles and cheese, a cheese that's close to my heart is Edam. I used to do the advertising at some point for Edam and Gouda and all sorts of things. And the Uruguayan Navy once won a battle against Argentina. They ran out of cannonballs and all they had was Edam cheeses. So they basically loaded their cannon with Edam.
You're kidding.
Nope. And they fired a few volleys at their opposition in their ships. And one of the cheeses shattered the mainmast of the main enemy ship. And sort of there's shrapnel everywhere from the shattered mast. And this killed 2 sailors. So
Really?
2 sailors have been actually killed by a ball of Edam.
Goodness gracious. Great balls of cheese. I'm sure we'll put a link up on the website to explain why that's funny.
We may well. Lots of other cheeses, of course.
Oh, there are just millions. There are just so many varieties. I mean, even in this country alone, you sort of picture all the cheeses that are named after the regions where it's made. Cheddar, Stilton, Cheshire, Red Leicester, Double Gloucester, Wensleydale. There's one called Cornish Yarg, which is wrapped in a stinging nettle. It's quite tasty.
Where does Stilton come from?
Place called Stilton.
No.
No?
Uh-uh.
Doesn't it?
Apparently not. They're not allowed to make Stilton in Stilton.
That's... What?
So you can make Stilton in one of 3 counties of Derbyshire, Leicestershire and Nottinghamshire. So manufacturers of Stilton in these counties have received protection under European law. It's one of the protected designation of origin, PDOs, which I think we spoke about on curries.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
So there are lots of things in the world, and like champagne, for example.
Champagne, yes, exactly, yeah.
So you don't have to live in Stilton to make Stilton.
Right. Great. So you can produce it in any of those 3 counties, but not outside.
Yes.
Cool. Well, that's very inclusive of them, isn't it? I find this interesting that those names of those cheeses, because that's where they come from, they are now a recognised style of cheese, and therefore you can make those styles with those names in other places. I had a quick look at American cheese.
Yes.
Which is just the worst.
So I hear.
It depends on what you use it for. I mean, in the right places, it's very useful. You think of a nice big juicy burger with a little thin layer of cheese on it. That's American cheese. It goes well in a Philly cheesesteak sandwich, etc., etc. It has its purposes. I wouldn't want to sit down and eat a block of it, but there you go. But American cheese is actually made with cheddar.
Yep.
So when the English pilgrims went and settled in America, they took their cheese-making knowledge with them and they started making cheddar cheese in America and then actually started selling it back to England as American cheese. It then sort of went through a bit of a change in the 1910s when James L. Kraft, the founder of Kraft Foods, got a patent for making the stuff. And essentially, you grate some cheddar, some Colby, a couple of other different types of cheese. You grate them up, And you mix them with really good, nutritious ingredients, such as acidifying agents, artificial colouring, sodium citrate, etc. All the good things. And it sort of forms this gooey, mouldable substance, which then comes out being that sheet of bright orangey, yellow, plasticky looking
yummy
stuff. It's not great. The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, won't allow it to legally be called cheese. Because according to them, to call something cheese, it must contain at least 51% pressed curds, which we've established is what cheese is.
Yeah.
This stuff doesn't. It contains less than half of that, and therefore it's not technically cheese. It's classified as a pasteurized, processed American cheese food. Doesn't that sound appetizing?
Mm. Do you know about Stilton rolling?
Vaguely.
See, you may know about Gloucester cheese rolling, which is much more violent.
Yes.
Which we'll come to in a minute. But Stilton rolling, they basically rolled a giant wheel of Stilton along along a street, and there's teams of 3 or 4 people.
Okay.
And it's how fast you can roll. And these wheels of Stilton are not like level. They're cambered.
Right.
So that they can go anywhere.
Oh, brilliant.
And it's quite difficult to roll them along this street. I'll put a video on the show notes at factoraly.com. But so that's the easy ones. If you don't fancy getting injured, Stilton rolling is the way to go.
And the other variety where you do want to get injured.
Yes. I mean, there was a winner, I think, last year who actually won whilst she was unconscious.
Oh, my goodness.
Because you roll a wheel of cheese down a hill in Gloucestershire, and you chase the cheese. And I'll put a video again in the show notes of people chasing this cheese, and they look as though they're going to come to the bottom. I mean, the St John's ambulance must be hugely busy at the bottom of this hill.
Yes. There are so many quaint little English village traditions, which I can only assume came about at the end of an evening down the pub. And a few people have sort of staggered out of the pub. They've just had a lot to drink and eaten some cheese. They've got some cheese left over and they go, I bet I can get to the bottom of the hill first. I have always wondered how you make holy cheese. Generic term Swiss cheese, it sort of incorporates things like Emmental and Gruyere and things like that. Large wheels of cheese that have holes through them. I've always wondered how that works. And it's quite a simple process, actually. Once the cheese has been made and it sits to store, we already mentioned they have different storage times depending on what you're trying to produce. Swiss cheese, or any cheese with holes in it, it's taken out of storage after only 2 weeks. You store it in a cool room at around sort of 10 degrees Celsius. They take it out of there after 2 weeks and then store it in a slightly warmer room, and that difference in temperature causes carbon dioxide bubbles to form in the cheese.
All right.
And that's what makes the holes. They then bung it back in the cool storage to continue the ripening process, and that's how you get holy cheese.
Gosh. I discovered, by the way, you can wax your own cheese.
Can you?
So if you get a hard cheese, again, I've got a video of this in the show notes. Very nice Irish guy explaining how to do it.
Right.
Apparently he imports the wax from Poland.
Okay.
And he dips hard cheese into warm wax. And once he's waxed his cheese, it'll last for up to 20 years.
Really?
Yeah, and get better.
Yeah.
Apparently you have to keep turning it like a fine wine every so often.
Okay.
But yeah, apparently you can keep a cheese for 20 years.
I mean, one would question why. I would have thought the best thing to do with cheese is to buy it and eat it.
Because it tastes better. If you started 20 years ago, you'll have the most delicious cheese today, apparently.
I suppose so, yeah.
You know, people say cheese.
Oh, for a photo, yeah.
Yeah. Most countries say cheese for a photograph. But there are a lot of different ways of smiling for the camera.
Right.
So in Bulgaria, they say salad.
Do they?
Zele.
Okay.
In Denmark, they say orange. Appelsin.
Right.
In Estonia, pea soup. Hennesup. In France, occasionally they say little monkey. Ristiti.
Right, so anything that kind of ends in an E sound that makes your mouth widen in order to make a smile.
Although sometimes they do say cheese. Like in India, they say paneer.
Oh, right.
Which is cheese. And in Israel, they say cheese in Hebrew. In Korea, they say kimchi. In Russia, they say raisins.
Right, okay.
In Spain, potato, patata.
Right.
But the weird one is in Tunisia, they say couscous, which makes you look like you're pouting.
Yes, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How wonderful.
In Wisconsin, which is a very big dairy state, they came up with a law for a couple of years, from 1935 to 1937. There was a law that restaurants had to serve cheese with every meal.
Really?
Yeah.
Just in order to get rid of the stuff?
Yeah. Well, because it's supporting the local industry.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'd be perfectly happy with that, Laura. I'd love to finish a meal with a nice cheese board.
Well, that or mac and cheese.
Oh, of course, yes.
It is the biggie.
It is, isn't it?
In America. The one that was very popular was a box of Kraft mac and cheese.
That's
like
right.
sort of, and you basically just put it into water and it was...
Yes, it's just instant.
Yeah, instant mac and cheese.
Something to fill you up.
There is another use of cheese and pineapple at the same time.
Oh, you're going towards pizzas, aren't you?
No, I'm going towards the hedgehog.
I'm looking forward to this.
So you're probably a bit too young, but at dinner parties in the 50s and 60s, people used to wrap like an orange or a grapefruit or even sometimes a melon in silver foil. And then they would cut cheese into cubes and pineapple into segments.
Yes.
And skewer cheese and pineapple onto like toothpick things.
Yes.
And stab them into this silver ball to make what was then described as a cheese hedgehog.
Brilliant.
And sometimes people would put maraschino cherries as eyes and make sort of like mouths and stuff.
Well, I've never heard the term cheese hedgehog, but I know exactly what you're talking about because my parents used to do cheese and pineapple on cocktail sticks every Christmas when I was a kid.
There you go. So, Simon, as always, we turn to you for the records on cheese.
There are a lot of cheese records, partly because there are a lot of cheeses. So there are individual records for the biggest Stilton, the biggest cheddar, and so on and so on. So I've just picked a few just because they piqued my interest. There's a Guinness World Record for the largest cheese board or cheese platter, which weighed just over 2 kilos and was prepared by a company in Wisconsin, as you've already mentioned, the cheese capital of America. In 2018, this cheese board contained 145 varieties of cheese, and it wasn't sort of ordered by a person in a restaurant, but it was a big thing that was presented as part of an industrial cheese convention type thing. The largest cheese sculpture. 1,415 kilos.
1,100. Okay, so like just over a ton.
Yes.
Okay.
This was achieved by a few sculptors in Louisiana, USA, in 2018. The sculpture was created from a single block of cheddar cheese.
Right.
And the sculpture depicts, of course it does, it depicts an alligator in a chef's hat frying a turkey.
I would have thought a mouse would have been a more...
Yes, you wouldn't you? There's a record for the fastest time to eat 500 grams of mozzarella.
Go on.
1 minute and 2.34 seconds in a block, not even grated.
That's half a kilo of mozzarella.
This was achieved by an English lady called Leah Schutkova, and she holds 35 Guinness World Records for speed eating different foodstuffs.
Well, I'm cheesed off.
Oh, I was going to say cheesed off.
Were you?
Yeah.
Because I thought you were the big cheese.
Well, fair enough. These jokes are getting a bit cheesy now, aren't they?
They are, very. Well, if you want any more facts, hard cheese.
Hey. So, we have a few things that we would very greatly appreciate you doing for us.
Go on, Simon. Ask for the things.
So, a 5-star review and a beautiful long liturgy of the reasons why you enjoy listening to the show.
Yes.
Please subscribe to us. Hit that little subscription button so you can get a notification every time a new episode pops up.
Definitely do that.
Thirdly, please tell all of your lovely nerdy friends about this show so that they can come along and enjoy the fun.
Everyone who likes cheese that you know.
Yes. Or even those who don't, because it's interesting anyway. So that's the end of another episode of Factoraly. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
We enjoyed your company. Please come again soon. Bye-bye.
Au revoir.